I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor. Out there in the nation's capital, another beautiful blue sky day here in the Okanagan with just a little bit of smoke hanging in the air. It likes to sit in the valley. How are things looking out there in the nation's capital?
It's very nice. Pretty cold morning, but now it's a nice sunny spring day. Oh, spring? Feels like spring, but late summer, I suppose.
I guess our theme today, Carney's list delivers nothing new. And the reporters are now digging into it and discovering that there's not a lot of new stuff in there. And a lot to do about nothing. How's that? Crime, and more crime. And Pierre says he's sickened. And I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him. That's Trump talking about the person that assassinated Charlie Kirk. And then the question is, global news becoming Canada's Fox News? People are making those accusations right now. And is it time for the liberal elite to start walking amongst the peasants? Repercussions happening for the death celebrators. And CBC continues to embarrass Canadians. All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. We do news a little bit different here. And like I said, we've got a really big show. But we're going to kick it off with Pierre Poilievre making a speech there. It's one of his most impassioned speeches so far. And this is on crime. And there's lots of voices joining him on this big topic here. And let's play this clip here from Pierre Poilievre on crime.
This is sick. As a father, I am sickened by these stories. Everyone, before I begin, please allow me to offer my condolences to the family and loved ones of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old father of two who was mercilessly assassinated yesterday at a university campus for having expressed contrary views. Universities are supposed to be places of debate where differing opinions can be offered and exchanged in peace and security. We must all unite, regardless of our political views, around a simple principle. Political violence is never acceptable. Every person should be free to express their opinion without fear of violence. And speaking about fear of violence, this house here behind me, the owner has spent $100,000.
Teenagers are building businesses with
Albert Einstein there? Don't know what the hell he was doing.
I think we're going to continue on.
Security. Bulletproof windows, camera systems, alarms, electric fencing in certain parts of the home. I won't get too specific because I don't want the bad guys to know exactly where and what he's got. But can you imagine spending $100,000? Do you know before the Liberal government you could buy a house in some parts of Canada for under $100,000? Now that's what it costs to secure your house. Crime is raging out of control. And you heard the stories of the courageous victims behind me today telling their stories. You know, I find it incredible that Sean Fraser, Minister of Injustice, the man who ruined our entire immigration system before Mr. Carney then promoted him to be responsible for the crime crisis, he said the other day, this is not the Wild West. Really? Has he talked to these victims? A woman who's had to leave the country of her birth to live in another nation because she's afraid of her ex tracking her down? Has he talked to the family of Aleem Farouki, the courageous father who rose in the middle of the night to defend his kids and lost his life in front of those children? The three cowardly scumbags who carried out that attack, I bet you anything they have already been arrested in the past. You know, I had one family member of a crime victim the other day say, Sean Fraser is right. It's not a Wild West. It's a war zone in some of these communities. People in these neighborhoods are terrified. They are genuinely afraid of the crime that is raging in our streets. And these are not just stories. This is not sensationalism. This is data and facts. Here's what the facts say if you believe Statistics Canada. Under the Liberals' catch and release system, Extortions are up 330%. Sexual assaults up 76%. Violent crime up 55%. Homicides up 29%. A majority of Canadians told a pollster that they worry a lot or worry sometimes about their own personal safety. A majority of Canadians are now afraid to live in Canada after a decade of these Liberal laws. In Toronto, residential robberies are up 50%, and we see more than 900 armed robberies in the last 2 years. The rate of armed robberies is actually doubling. And the stories are piling up. They are horrendous. We've got the story of James Plover. He was released while awaiting sentencing. 3 hours after his release, he brutally murdered Bailey McCourt, his ex-wife, in a parking lot just 4 kilometers from the courthouse. Daniel said,
You can go watch that whole thing. That story happened here in Kelowna. And there's more on it. But he highlights further into the video how it's the Liberal law there that says that the judge must release the person at the earliest possible convenience in the most less onerous whatever restrictions. So that's why these people are going. I mean, in Kelowna, we have the mayor wrote the letter that 222 files on this one person, including 32 failures to appear. And I interviewed Gavin Duyas, the MLA here for Kelowna. How many failures to appear before they stop releasing him into the public? Because he's not even showing up in court. How many do you need? Like, is there a magic number on failures to appear in court? You would think one failure to appear would be enough to hold him and say, well, you're obviously never going to show up for court. So what kind of justice system is that?
I mean, you would think failure to appear without an extraordinary justification would warrant a jail sentence by itself, wouldn't you?
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm saying.
let's be honest. That's serious, isn't it? And
But
that certainly was true in the past.
32 though, like at some point, if you stuck your hand on a burning stove and it burnt you, would you stick your hand on there 32 times to see if that was actually going to happen again?
Well, if it wasn't hot, and to perfect the analogy here, it isn't hot, is it? They know it's not hot. That's why they keep putting their hand on it, because the people who are routinely convicted of crimes in this country and in other countries in the West are well aware of the nature of the justice system.
I'm talking about the judges that let them out. I know they're handcuffed, they say, by the Liberal legislation, but like, are they trying to prove a point?
Well, I think they are. I think they really are constrained. I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? I think the laws are clear that you should strive to release people if that's possible at all. You should try and do it as soon as possible. But also, especially if they're not white, we have to say that from the rooftops. That's the law in this country. If you aren't white and you commit a crime, you get special treatment in the justice system. You get pre-sentencing discussion of whether it would be appropriate to put you in prison because of the effects of systemic racism on your life. But that also applies to bail, and a priority is given to bail in those situations based on your skin color. So that is, you have to just think for a minute. That's how corrupted and poisoned and diseased the justice system is in this country, that you get a different kind of justice depending on what your DNA says about you. A DNA test would reveal. But I mean, I say DNA, it's not even that. It's self-declared. You could go in there, looking like a very obviously white person and say, oh no, I'm black actually. And the system is so stupid that it would say, okay, well, this being a black man, I think we should try and prioritize his release on bail. The whole system is from the very bottom up corrupted, and it's a philosophical corruption. It's not just, I don't think it's individuals necessarily, and I don't think it's even laws specifically. It's the whole attitude to it, and it's a very deep cultural problem that is obviously going to have to be fixed over a very long time. I think a lot of work needs to be done. And you see Sean Fraser come out, which we're going to look at next, aren't we? And I don't think he gets it, and I don't think he can get it because he's grown up in this culture and in this philosophy where all this is right. It's right to hand out different kinds of justice to people based on their skin color. It's right to prioritize the criminal over the victim. It's right to think about things like racism and poverty and mental health of the perpetrator rather than the victim. All of this kind of thing is just normal. So what do you do? I mean, as usual, I'm tempted. A lot of people are tempted to say the same thing, and I am as well. Maybe it has to go to the universities, and that's where you have to start if you want to reform the system, because you have to make sure that your educated class isn't stupid as they are now, or doesn't believe stupid things.
We're going to play this clip here from Sean Fraser. But before we do, Pierre was being generous there. He just said that he wrecked immigration. He forgot that he also was the housing minister. And look at the shape the housing is in Canada as well. So Sean Fraser twice failed, now given justice, the Ministry of Justice. And listen into what he has to say.
When it comes to implementing tighter bail reforms, including clarifying the role of bail in the criminal justice system, including reverse onuses for serious and violent crimes, auto theft, home invasion, human trafficking. You'll also see a number of different measures that strengthen sentencing for violent repeat offenders for serious crimes to ensure that the perpetrators of those crimes face serious consequences. We intend also to address very serious challenges with delay in the justice system, to ensure that we don't have serious crimes thrown out or stayed purely because they've been taking too long. We also intend to move forward with new measures that will help protect victims of intimate partner violence. You should see new sexual offenses established, including the non-consensual sharing of intimate images and non-consensual sharing of deepfakes, that also protect kids against online exploitation, and we'll see more support for victims through the criminal trial process. In addition, we want to advance measures that will help address the scourge of hate crimes that we see in this country.
You know, one of the things is the justice system in Canada is very slow, but I have a solution for that. If you're listening, Sean Fraser, and I know you're listening every now and then, there used to be a TV show called Night Court. You know, we have all these buildings that aren't used for most of the day. Remember the show Night Court? You don't remember?
I never saw it.
they actually started in the States. They would do Night Court. So they would do the less violent crimes and that, so that people would get speedier justice. They would just hire, different judges and then they would actually get a whole system there, and they would just do expedient justice, like fast, right? Instead of long, arduous wait times, like forever and ever and ever, just Night Court. It's a simple concept. It's been done. It's done in the U.S.
If you can remember, last summer wasn't it, when there were the riots in England? Do you remember that, where Keir Starmer called them all far right, which seems a little bit disgusting, doesn't it, in light of what's happened over the last couple of days? But he called all of these ordinary English people far right, and basically called them fascists and all the rest of that stupid garbage that politicians do all the time. Anyway, the justice system in England, believe it or not, you might find it hard to believe, but is even worse than Canada's, and the backlogs are even bigger. And they were going through an enormous crisis in England where they literally let prisoners out. Violent offenders had been released early because they had screwed up the justice system so much that they couldn't find prison spaces for them. And then when those riots happened in England, Keir Starmer came out and said, we're going to do 24/7 courts. We're going to do it because this is so urgent. It's such an emergency. We're going to do it, and we're going to process all of these charges. So I know obviously that's a different country, but it's the same system, very similar legal system.
Night Court,
obviously, it could be done here too. It could be done anywhere. Oh, yeah. And you're right, it has been done in the past. You just need the will. Right, it just needs to be. It needs to be something that you're bothered about. And obviously, in that case in England, and we have to say, Keir Starmer and Mark Carney, jolly good friends, aren't they? They seem to be like-minded. They seem to really like each other and agree with each other on a lot of things. Keir Starmer thought the one emergency, the one justification for these night courts was some people doing things that he considered to be far right. So political enemies, basically.
Yeah, one of the things guaranteed in a democracy is expedient justice. And they have these courthouses that are empty, that are run like 8 hours a day. We have the asset, it's sitting there. Hire more judges, appoint more judges. fix the law, actually repeal your old law, and allow the judges to perform expedient justice, and then everybody will feel safer. It's just that easy. Night court. Again, you go online, you can search it, night court. You can also see it in the US. They have tons of these. They have different levels of court. Anyway, here's another example of what's happening in Canada. Take a look at this, and how much of this has to happen before people are unsafe. And here's suspects using a large axe to break into a Vaughan home. We don't need the audio. You don't need to hear it. You can just feel it. Anyway, they get into the home. That's good. You can close it there. 4 people use an axe to break into a home in broad daylight there. Look at that, broad daylight.
Just, I mean, it's just the brazenness of it, isn't it, really? And it's always, I mean, I don't know if it's just me that's noticed this. It's always either York Regional Police or Peel, isn't it? It's always those 2 police forces.
But it's
and I mean,
not
it's not a good, because they're both Toronto, basically. Not a good advertisement for life in Toronto, that really, is it?
But it's not the Wild Wild West. That looks, when they're doing brazen, broad daylight home invasions, can the police offer security? And the Toronto police, remember the advice, leave your keys at the front door?
But also the law, like we were talking about, you can't even bear spray these people. Like you can't use anything. It's not like you can use any sort of tool or any equipment to defend yourself. I mean,
Not
maybe
Wild
a baseball
Wild
bat
West.
if it's proportionate, whatever that means.
Not the Wild Wild West, eh?
Yeah, definitely not the Wild Wild West, because if it was the Wild West, you would have your Colt in your back pocket and you could have a go at least, try and defend yourself.
Here's Pierre Poilievre taking a question. And again, this is one of the biggest problems in Canada. We talk about this all the time. Bill C-18, that's why it's in here. The mainstream media, the liberal mouthpiece, the CBC, doesn't seem to want to highlight this issue. But here you go. Here's a reporter, independent reporter, asking a question of Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Ryan from Northern Perspective. One of the things that kind of shocks me is the lack of attention that the state-funded media has put on this issue since it became blatantly apparent as a result of the statistics. And you weren't even asked about that today, considering this is the focus of the press conference. Mm-hmm. And one thing that the media has not covered is the fact that in Hamilton, Hamiltonians have resorted to Facebook groups posting screenshots, posting video of people actually coming into their property to warn other people, because that's the resort that they've had to rely on. And as a result, with their safety, you're right, people are afraid in their homes. So the question is, and on behalf of all of the victims and all of the scared Canadians, have you built a coalition with the other opposition parties to ensure that this bill will pass?
Thank you very much. And I think it's so important we have independent voices like you, so that these stories that people are living in their real world are actually told. Because I agree that the Liberals don't want any discussion about the crime and chaos that they have unleashed on our streets, and they do everything in their power to change the channel, to make excuses, and to brush it off. But the reality is that Liberals created this chaos, and only Conservatives will end it. As for a coalition, look, I'll be very blunt with you. All of the other parties in the House of Commons support the catch and release, soft on crime, criminal justice system the Liberals brought in. They voted for it. There's only one thing that's going to make them change, and that is pressure from voters. So I would say, if you're out there, if you're afraid, if you're angry with the terror and the crime that Liberals have unleashed, you need to call your local MP and say, if you don't vote for jail, not bail, I won't vote for you. So I will be watching, and if you, Mr. or Mrs. MP, continue to vote for Liberal law.
If that was the Liberal Party stand there, Mr. Northern Perspective wouldn't get a question either. How did we lose Ian's audio?
Wouldn't even be in the audience, would he? Let's be honest. Wouldn't have been allowed in to the gaggle.
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it. Like, and that's where we don't have a free and independent media here in Canada. We need to stop all government funding of media. We need to repeal Bill C-18. You know what? The biggest thing that we need to do is repeal almost everything that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals put into place. And it's Bill 69, Bill C-48, Bill C-18, and this catch and release. I don't know what the bill is. Is it 5 or no, not 5, but. It's just a travesty. Like, it's just a mess. And they're going to make, like according to Sean Fraser, they're going to add in all these online harms thing or whatever, just to kind of push that through under the guise of that this is supposed to protect you, right? Typical.
This, somebody's just said here, and I just want to respond to that first, that Give Me Liberty said CBC had an audio issue when that question was asked. I was watching that as well. On CPAC, but I don't know whose camera. Yeah, they seriously did. I don't know whose camera it was. I don't know if it was CPAC's or if it was, I don't know if CPAC was using CBC's feed or whatever it was, but it was really strange because that was the only independent journalist who asked a question and it was cut. It was very, very strange.
That's how bad, like, I mean, you could be a cynic and they say that's how bad the CBC has become. Where they filter.
I would love to think it was an accident and it wasn't. They didn't just think, "Oh, cut this." Like, we don't know who this is. He might say something, that we don't want to hear, kind of thing. I don't know what it was, but it might be worth investigating actually, and see if I could find out who it was. But it was the CPAC feed that I saw that on. And Polyev, like, if you go on Polyev's Twitter account, I see him his Facebook page or whatever. He has his own stream, and it wasn't cut on that one, obviously. So that's where you could access it, and that's where you could see it.
Hey, selective audio cutting. Weird.
I mean, obviously producers do that kind of thing when they think somebody might say something like illegal or something, or like racist or something. Like, producers do cut the audio, but if they have done that, I don't know. That would just be astonishing.
The bigger question to Canadians is how many times are independent outlets allowed to ask questions? When it's, the Carney Liberal standing in front of the microphone? How many times?
Never. Basically never. I mean, look, we've done it, but let's remember there are a couple of things to bear in mind. One, they almost always seem to try and avoid telling us where they're going to be when they're in the Okanagan. I mean,
that's the control here.
I can't believe that's a coincidence.
Harder to control.
But then the other
here,
thing is, yeah. But the other thing is, we're also an outlet with its headquarters in Kelowna, and we have a Kelowna presence, and Kelowna Now is one of the outlets that we manage. It's like we're very much in the community, and it's a lot harder to say no to like local media. I mean, it looks a lot worse. Whereas these ones, Northern Perspective, I've honestly never even heard of them, but or Juno and the likes, they're kind of national, aren't they? They're not really wedded to a single place. So I think they find it a lot easier to say, "Who are you?" Like, no, like, you don't belong here, sort of thing. But it tells you a lot, doesn't it, that the questions that we talk about the most, from when journalists ask questions of politicians, the questions that we are most interested in and discuss the most are the ones that come from people like this. And like that time where Rebel, I don't know how they did it, but somehow they got in and asked questions after the Liberal leadership debate. Well, I think it was the Liberal, or was it whichever one it was?
Day. It was the Liberal leadership debate.
Yeah. But it's like, doesn't that tell you something, that they were the most interesting questions? And why is that? Because they actually, for their own partisan reasons, I freely admit that's obviously why, but they're the only ones who are really putting pressure on the people in charge. They're the only ones who are really trying to actually be opposition journalists. And
then what
I don't mean that as
day?
in like a conservative journalist. I mean literally in opposition to power, which is what you're supposed to be as a journalist.
And what happened the next day? The next day,
yeah, they realized that it was the
CBC that said it was unsafe for other journalists to have them there. And it was the CBC
unsafe.
that silenced them. It was the CBC that silenced independent media. And then the only way around it was to not allow any questions because they were scared for their safety.
And didn't Rosemary Barton go on and talk about misinformation or something like that while she uttered misinformation, while she was condemning misinformation from those people? I think that's when she said that 215 children had been found in Kamloops.
A
which is
cynic would
completely
say,
false.
a cynic might say she's the chief misinformation officer for the CBC. Trump
Well, she's
said
a
this.
voice of the establishment. You know, I mean, people often do that. They Photoshop her as like the North Korean announcer, don't they? The North Korean TV announcer. That's obviously that's way too far. That's not quite fair. But she is just like that North Korean announcer. She is Canada's equivalent of like an establishment voice. This is what the establishment thinks. This is what power in Canada wants you to think. That's certainly her role. And I don't even know if she realizes that, but it's certainly true.
If you go watch that and then the silencing of this, I mean, the Canadians should be furious because we're the ones that fund this $1.55 billion. Trump said this morning on Fox and Friends that he said with a high, they believe they have them. I think the actual quote is, I think with a high degree of certainty, we have them. And that's the Tyler Robinson that they've taken into custody for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it turns out it was a priest that recognized the photo and then went to the father. And then the father brought the son in. And the father was former law enforcement as well. And I think the priest went to a U.S. Marshal. The Marshal went to the father, and the father brought the alleged. So they have a person, a suspect in custody, which, you know, I just told you what Trump said, but.
Yeah, it's weird. Trump said that while he was on Fox News, didn't he? He was like sitting there on the sofa.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that in all my years of following US politics. Very strange.
I think
but then not long after, the governor of Utah came out and gave a very comprehensive briefing. Like, so from a Canadian perspective, very, very comprehensive. I mean, you really got a lot of information from him. We're used to not getting anything, aren't we, at these press conferences? But he was quite forthcoming.
So they even in this clip here, they even told you what was written on all the bullet casings, and you can read it there yourself. And that was what was on the casings.
This is very kind of online stuff. That notices bulge. That's a meme, a really, really strange meme. Not a very funny meme at all. The hey fascist catch thing, that is obviously, I mean, you don't know, do you? You don't know, because the internet, like the younger generation is so ironic. They're sort of, or they think it's irony, but they're sort of like tangled in so many layers of nonsense that they sometimes say things and you think, all right, so that means that you're X, but they're actually doing it just to troll you, just to wind you up, so who knows what this means? But I mean, that seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? That he is, he's one of these people that thinks everybody is a fascist. And then things like that, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO, which is laughing my A off, like that. And that other Bella Ciao, like a lot of this is very, very strange. It's like a very online thing. All of this is like what kids online say to each other. So he was clearly, I mean, he even said actually, Cox here, the governor, he said social media is a cancer, which was kind of like out of nowhere. It was like it wasn't connected to anything. He just sort of said that, and it's kind of, when you think about it and when you look at these things that this kid has said, it's like, yeah, you can really see why he would think that.
Yeah, there's some clips of him when he first got his scholarship to university, and he just seemed like a normal young man.
Yeah, he's like quite bright, isn't he? Like a really good grades and stuff. I mean, it's like, and Utah, I don't know if you've been to Utah, but Utah is just full of like the friendliest people that you will ever meet in your life. They're so weirdly friendly, the people in Utah.
Very religious.
Of all the places to come from.
And it's also, they have that big church there, the big Mormon church there.
Yeah.
Do you, this is, again, CBC trying to embarrass themselves. We're going to play a little clip here.
There's much more about Charlie Kirk online for you this morning, including an analysis piece by Verity Stevenson looking at how he appealed to young conservatives. He really brought them to the Donald Trump camp and drove that part of the MAGA movement. He embraced social media and new technology and often expressed old school and controversial ideas with these new means. You can read the article up on our website this morning or on the CBC News app. You're watching CBC Morning Live.
And if you go read the article, old school meaning like, which is now the CBC would term as far right. You know, like remember that police officer, RCMP officer, said that people that are just that have traditional relationships are far right as well. You know, like what is actually happening?
I'm just having a look now because I haven't read this article, but that has piqued my interest. I'm just seeing if I can find anything that would give me a chuckle. But yeah, I mean, so somebody said PhD candidate. Is that for real? That it's because they do that. Canadian press does that as well, where they interview a PhD candidate. What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Go and interview a kid, a student at university, and then say experts say. Oh yeah, so they're talking about how he called George Floyd a scumbag. I mean, it's all just an attempt, basically, to justify his murder, isn't it? I'm sorry to say. I mean, but are you surprised at this point, the CBC? It's a hive of villainy, isn't it, at the minute, the CBC? Yeah. It's just full of these stupid partisans.
Let's play one more.
Just have apparently no self-awareness.
One more from the CBC, just in case.
Still ahead, the latest on the killing of far-right activist Charlie Kirk in the U.S. Investigators have released images of a person of interest. We'll have more on that just ahead here on CBC News Network.
That's good.
Far-right. But this is the thing, it's like that they just don't learn, do they? Like, I'm very interested to know if Charlie Angus, I know he's a nobody, and you don't need to care about him. He's not even employed anymore. He's, in many ways, a waste of time to even speak about him. But he was an MP, and he was a quite prominent political figure in this country. And he has, on many occasions, gone around and called random people fascists. And I wonder, is Charlie Angus going to learn his lesson, do you think? My guess is no. But people like that, the CBC, are they going to learn their lesson? Are they going to learn their lesson that you can't just throw around terms like far right? For God's sake, do they not understand the sort of moral system that we live in? Far right equals Hitler. Hitler equals most evil person in the history of the world. Therefore, you can kill him. How many people have had that conversation, the thought experiment? Would you kill baby Hitler? Or would you kill Hitler if you could go back in time, sort of thing? Like, you're a very peaceful person, you're a pacifist maybe, but would you kill Hitler if you had a time machine? Everybody's familiar with that thought experiment, and almost everybody says yes. So if you brand people far right, fascist, or, you know, an admirer of Hitler, white supremacist, whatever, you're basically saying to a certain group of people, it's okay to kill that person. It's morally justified to kill that person. And I just think the CBC, again, what a thoughtless institution that is. It's just full of people that do not think. They need a lecture. They need a dressing down, and they need to be told, you can't just throw around terms like far right. Needless to say, Charlie Kirk wasn't even close to far right. Go and read about what that actually means, you fools. Yeah, learn about politics and the political spectrum. Far right actually means something, you know?
But I want to say, though, the CBC does a lot of work telling people what far-right activist is. They do a lot of work heaping that label onto so many people. And here this guy just says it just so casually and nonchalantly to embolden people that Charlie Kirk, far-right activist, he just labeled them, right? Just labeled them. And in the United States right now, this anchor and the CBC would be facing a lawsuit. So let's see if something happens from this labeling of, because CBC seems to have license to do whatever it seems to want to do. But I mean, he just labeled the person, but they've also spent years cultivating the hate in that word, far-right activist. They've even used it on Pierre many times, right? And John Rustad, far-right, far-right, far-right.
Yeah, John Rustad, not so much Polyev lately, but definitely Rustad's had it so often, hasn't he? John Rustad, For God's sake, are you familiar with John Rustad? I mean, he's a liberal. He's a right liberal. That's what he is. There's people on the liberal left and there are people on the liberal right. John Rustad is on the liberal right. Very, very obvious if you know the first thing about history and politics. But obviously these people don't know that. They don't know anything. So they throw around these terms. And it just, when you're sat there on CBC, the Prime Minister's personal favourite Canadian institution, you're being paid by our money, taxpayers' money, to be there, given this bizarre advantage in the Canadian landscape, media landscape, and then you say something as uninformed and stupid and reckless and dangerous as that. And will there be shame? Will there be punishment? Will there be a correction? Obviously not.
They have access to our purse with liberals actually liking it because they are the mouthpiece for liberals. And notice the last couple of days we talked about, they got all the leaked information. That somehow CBC seemed to get all the information they needed from the Liberal Party. They should be held to account for that, 100%. And again, just also here, this is Charlie Kirk arriving in his home in Arizona. Here.
Arizona.
Yeah, let's play.
On the visual. 26 South 1555 Phoenix Center, wind 2409, runway 26 to the line. Clear line 26, Southwest 1565.
Welcome home, Charlie. You didn't deserve it. May God bless your family.
There you go. That's Air Force 2 that has brought Charlie Kirk home. Coming off the plane was Charlie's wife with Usha Vance, the vice president's wife, and J.D. Vance was also on that aircraft.
Yeah, apparently Vance was very close to him, wasn't he? Personally.
Yeah. Canadians celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination may be banned from the U.S. That's what that's even coming from Marco Rubio, which we'll show you later. But this is a story out of the from Joe Warmington there, and then and that you know, like, and also an image there, you know, like they and that university that, remember we showed that tweet. Sorry, I got to collect myself. That tweet there. Where the person said that shooting is too good for a guy like the 31-year-old conservative influencer. So a lot of people are getting fired.
I'm not sure who this person from British Columbia is. I haven't heard of that, but
I saw the social work.
Like when it happened, as soon as it happened, as soon as he was murdered, I knew that there would be people that were going to do that, and I assumed that there would be people from, you know, in British Columbia would do that as well. But rather than crawl around like some sort of grave digger or something, I chose not to go and try and hunt them down. But I mean, it would be so easy to have done that. There'd be loads of people working for all kinds of authorities and the BC government probably, just because, like I just said earlier in my mega rant there are lots of people out there who are actually convinced that the likes of Charlie Kirk were or are fascists. They think that they're like Hitler. What do you do if you actually are stupid enough to think that's true? What do you do with that information? And a lot of people take it so literally that they think, okay, well, I need to stop the next Hitler then, don't I? I need to kill Joseph Goebbels. And they think it's a heroic thing to do. And then these people who are so often, I don't know if you've realized this, but so often are either have an undergraduate degree or even a postgraduate degree. It's very much associated with the universities. But they see it done and they celebrate it, just like they did that the case of the health insurance CEO that was murdered in New York City. The man accused of that has been celebrated, continues to be celebrated. And it's the same group of people, really, isn't it, who think that it's justified.
Marco Rubio's State Department said they'll ban foreigners entering the country who celebrated and so that people, like you said, have been collecting that. That's that next slide there. And then MSNBC's Matthew Dowd was fired for his comments, and there's been a lot of notices of people being fired as well. And then this is from the university. We showed that tweet there from that person that used some really foul language, and apparently this person has been put on leave right now. It's not on campus. Sidney Crosby,
So
though.
apparently, sorry, just to interrupt. Apparently, the BC person was somebody at Thompson Rivers University, which is Kamloops, and was a professor of journalism. That's according to that article from
And
in the Toronto Sun.
They're influencing our youth. And anyway, Sidney Crosby has asked the NHL and other professional sports to observe a minute of silence before each game to pay tribute to Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. We have to recognize what Pierre said in the beginning. Democracy is based on listening to people. It's not just the people you like, but democracy is based on everybody having the freedom of speech. This guy is guilty of going to campuses to dialogue with university students. Like, he openly wanted to dialogue with them. That's his guilt. Democracy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's when you actually start to strip away all the nonsense, strip away the sort of unnecessary details. Ultimately, that's what he's just a person that spoke. He was a speaker. He was a talker. That's all he ever did. And the people who are justifying his murder are justifying it because of that. Because of what he said, because he spoke, because words came out of his mouth.
Yeah.
People like Ilhan Omar, who's basically just come out and sort of half justified his murder. I mean, that's one of many I could list. That's just the most recent one that I've come across. It's all because this young lad, you know, like a sort of very sort of chummy, well-behaved young lad, went around and talked and had ideas and political conversations. And people are justifying his murder. It's, you know, when you sort of stare right down the barrel of that, it's very, very dark indeed, isn't it?
Canadians deserve a referendum on CBC to decide whether or not you want to continue to fund them. It shouldn't be a thing for any political party. They're taking Canadian tax dollars, $1.55 billion, and they're labeling people that have traditional family values. Remember, they also did a story on how a person that has traditional family values is far right as well. So who is far right according to the CBC?
Everybody, basically, because they're so far the other way. I mean, it's all about perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even want to put up the other one here because we've got so many of these. But also now there's been some accusations there that, you know, for Global News, that it's becoming the Fox News of Canada. I mean, they're trying to survive. I mean, we did a story yesterday how Chorus, which is the parent of Global News, another massive layoff. They had layoffs last year in August, and they've done another layoff. And maybe they're actually, because if you look in the U.S., the station that's actually doing the best is Fox News, gaining audience, while the other ones are losing, capitulating. And then here they put Ben Mulroney. You know who Ben Mulroney is, right? Obviously a far-right activist, right? The son of former Prime Minister Ben Mulroney. Nothing sacred, though, for the people. And here's Rachel Gilmore, and she's a Shudder, a countdown right now, because she said some stuff right after Charlie Kirk's assassination, and then, you know, that she was... and then she was like pleading, just like, what do I do? They, you know, like she's been named and shamed and stuff like that. But then she actually had this thing for the Ben Mulroney, saying that here's Ben Mulroney reposting Zionist praise of whatever, blah, blah, blah. She likes to swear a lot too, right? She was the one that was fired from Global and also fired from CTV. And she labels herself as a journalist, and I would say she's more of a rage farmer, hate farmer. She likes to you know, like, and she got a lot of it actually. And then another one here.
Very Americanized, isn't it? She's just like one of these trolls, one of the American trolls that do this. There's so many of them. And but I guess she's just in the little leagues, isn't she? Hoping to make it one day.
And here's another one saying that, you know, Global is becoming the Fox News of Canada. Maybe if Global breaks from the traditional trend of CBC and CTVs being the mouthpiece for the Liberals, they'll actually survive, because they're on their deathbed. Their stock is at 9 cents. They have over $1 billion in debt. They continue to lay off. They need to find a path, because they're just a cheap version many times of just CTV and CBC. They need to find their own path.
But, I mean, why are they going on about it as if this guy is again, some sort of like far-right nutcase, just yet another liberal, but sort of maybe a right liberal, but not even that, I wouldn't say in the case of this guy. But I'm not, massively familiar with him.
And he's
Motoring, I mean.
Not towing the line. Imagine what they're labeling us as. Imagine that, eh?
But I mean, I obviously don't care, but I mean, it would be quite easy to label us as anything, really, depending on. You could clip you talking about trade unions quite passionately or something like that, and say that you were a communist or something. You clip me talking about how I dislike Donald Trump. That would probably be some kind of libtard, as they like to say. Or you could clip us in another way. But I think that I would like to think anyway that we make our own minds up, don't we? Which is certainly what we would like other people to do anyway.
Yes, use your brain. It was given to you for a reason. Use it. Stop watching narratives on CBC and CTV where they tell you what to think and how to think, because obviously they have no moral authority. Francois Philippe Champagne, he loves to put out these tweets. So today we're moving from a vision of action to a more ambitious Canada with the first projects in the major projects office, from energy to critical minerals. We're building Canada strong. He loves to chuck that out there. But, all those projects, right? All those projects, and Carney even said today we announced the first tranche of major projects. They're all projects that were on the go. And a lot of journalists have now figured that out. And they're just like, hey, whoa. And I put it on my LinkedIn as well. The Darlington project. Anyway, that thing is, been in the works since 2021. We could go on and on and on about all the projects. Most of them were near completion. So, I mean, they spent all that time trying to find projects. It's like saying Site C Dam is now, that was our first project. It's like, okay. Even Holly Doan's in on here says, Carney yesterday named previously announced ventures as First Nation building projects to be fast-tracked by Cabinet. Well, the nuclear research program she outlined was licensed 5 months ago. And then so a lot of these projects, the first 5 projects, this is a reporter, you have identified already begun and quite advanced. So what does greenlighting them change? I mean, that's a good question, right? What? Because we're going to do all these projects. Remember, they were building up. We're going to make our list of all these projects. Remember, Poilievre had a list of things that was actually, I think he had a list of 10 like new projects. These are not new.
Yeah. I would say, though, it's not new, but what is new for Carney? And I think they had a guilty conscience when they wrote the press release, and also when Carney made the announcement, because right at the bottom, so you had these first 5, and then you had another set of things that might be ready to go in the near future. And right at the bottom of that list was the high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto. I actually think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's why LeBlanc went and did a separate press conference just about that. Because that's massive. That's going to be so much money. I mean, they're spending like $4 billion or something just to try and plan it. Never mind actually build it. That is going to be gigantic. And the fact that Carney has given that his stamp of approval, that's big news, actually, I think.
And then the other thing is, though, I asked ChatGPT when Trudeau first announced it, how much does this actually take, compared to what China built? And it said it gets $4 billion just in the planning phase, $4 billion to plan it. ChatGPT had said that 200 to 400,000 should be sufficient for the planning stage. And remember, who was in on this planning? Who actually got part of that contract in the planning? They were named. They're big in rail. They're absolutely huge in rail.
Air Canada, you mean?
Air Canada, right? Air Canada has got. They're just like, hey, if we're doling out money, where's our share?
Go on, you do it. I mean, what's funny is LeBlanc. Share?
The experts.
You talk about China and the planning stage and all the rest of it. Something that China doesn't have to do is what LeBlanc was talking about. He's saying, look, it's 1,000-kilometer railway line, and he said, just imagine all of the consultation, all of the indigenous consultation. Just imagine it, and he was like almost with glee, because that's where that's several $1 billion. That's where all that's going to go, so obviously, and then many more billions as well.
Hey, the Liberals are walking around with a sack of money just going like, hey, it's party time.
It's patronage, isn't it? I think that's the most important word to use and understand for if you want to sort of translate liberal politics. Just use that word, or just think about that word. It's patronage. It's the opportunity to open up the tap for your groups and give them the money.
And then guess where all of this patronage takes place? In the vote mecca of Canada.
Over there.
Ontario and Quebec. Right?
That is literally like that line that it's going to go down is just the Liberal Party, really. It's like that's a majority in Parliament, basically, if you look at the ridings near it.
Yeah, and then Dan Elvis put out this tweet. He's our MLA here in West Kelowna. They're taking credit for somebody else's work, no value added. That's what Mark Carney. Well, I mean, a lot of people are realizing it. I put it out right away on my LinkedIn, not done taking it. I mean, but it's pretty obvious, right? Like, I mean, when you talk, I was controller in the mine industry. To tell me that these two mines are near completion in operation, to take credit for them, you know how long it takes a mine to get going in Canada? 20 years. 20 years. Likely these mines started when Harper was still in. Do you know what I mean? 20 years to get anything going here in Canada. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Well, we got David. I don't know if we're going to talk about it later, but we got David Eby coming out as well, trying to jump on this and talk about, again, yesterday, used that magic phrase that BC is going to be the engine of Canada's economic growth. I think a lot of people are trying to kind of like get their hooks in, aren't they, to this one and try and go along for the ride.
We'll skip this next one because we're just repeating everything. But we're going to play this one here from Melissa Latzman, and she was interviewed with Fassi Capellas, one of the serious journalists left in Canada here on CTV.
I think a middle ground is realistic, and I don't think industry thinks that a middle ground is realistic, and I don't think that attracting investment on this middle ground is realistic. In order for us to attract the investment necessary, to attract the proponents necessary to build these projects, you have to give them a very, very clear signal. A signal that you can build here, that we're open for business. Well, your C5 is an admission that you may or may not approve a project at a certain point. Do you really think that an industry would look at C5 as the end-all be-all of, yes, we are going to dump money in Canada because it's a sure bet? I'm not sure about that, and I don't think many others are sure about that, and that is exactly what we're talking about. If the thing that is in the way is actually in the way, you've admitted it in the way, you've presented new legislation in the House saying that it's in the way, then get out of the way and drop those things in order for us to actually have the development, for us to stand on our own 2 feet, for us to be resilient, and for us to be less dependent on a single customer in the U.S.
Are you willing to alter your position if, for example, LNG Canada does decide to go forward with phase 2? If there does...
You know, in the interest of, we'll just kind of, instead of like playing this clip, we'll tell you that, because, you know, somebody asked about, you know, the pipeline thing, and, you know, they went into this, Carney went into this long dialogue about carbon and all this stuff. So, you know, it's the same stuff over and over and over again. It's just the same thing. But Daniel Smith, she did say she was hopeful. She had that meeting with Mark Carney. She did say she was hopeful, but, you know, like, I mean, I'm sure her patience is running thin. And we won't even play that clip again because we're into this a bit. But I'm sure that it's going to be tough. Like, it's like, you know, from what's being said, it's going to be tough for her to get that oil pipeline.
But we can't ignore the fact that she was over the moon.
Yeah, no.
She wasn't saying it in a guarded way or a stingy way. She was all in. She sounded like Doug Ford, absolutely loving Mark Carney. So she's obviously happy about something. I mean, I feel like maybe he's maybe behind closed doors he's saying to her, look, I've got these nutcases like Stephen Guilbeault and Mark Miller on my case, and they're snapping away at my heels, so I have to be a bit sort of waffly and non-committal, and then sort of make promises to her. Maybe he's done that, but I mean, if he doesn't follow through, then she's going to feel betrayed, isn't she? And she's going to be furious about it.
Here's another highlight from CBC, though. You know those electric buses from Line? Here's a couple of more, and they shut them all down now. Let's play this clip here.
Breaking news in Quebec this morning. Parents of thousands of children in that province are likely scrambling to find an alternate way to get kids to school today. And that is because Quebec has taken 1,200 electric school buses off the road. There was a fire earlier this week, and they are concerned about safety. Linda Ward bringing us all the details.
Oh, we don't need to play the whole thing. Yeah. So remember that they're defunct now as well, right? So, but the Trudeau government spent a lot of money on this corporate welfare with these electric bus. Oops.
I mean, it's just abysmal, isn't it? It couldn't have been worse. Kids as well, school kids. What a nightmare.
Oops. And this is another piece in the crime thing. It got chucked in late here, but let's just play this small clip here. Another home invasion.
As she parked in her garage, one suspect ran up the driveway, rolled under the closing garage door, and threatened her with a knife while demanding her keys. The suspect chased the victim around the garage with the large knife. She dropped the keys and ran screaming into the home. The victim's husband was able to come to her aid, at which time the suspects began chasing him with the knife. As the victims were trying to get back into their home and shut the door, the suspect began pushing on the door, trying to gain entry into the home. After failing to enter the home, the suspect fled the area in the stolen vehicle. Thankfully, neither victim was physically injured, and both suspects were taken into custody.
And make sure that they're aware that marijuana is up and that we're out.
There, they finally get the guy.
What's the punishment? That's the only bit that matters, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
and I'm willing to put it on the line and say, not long enough. Not enough punishment.
Well, he's likely made it out before the police got to finish the paperwork.
Terrifying. And Bowmanville as well. I knew somebody who lived there. It's kind of quite a nice place. You know, it's like north of Toronto. You can commute into Toronto from there. It's like, it's not exactly a rough town or anything, but this is just like Ontario seems to just be plagued by this.
Maybe Sean Fraser should phone these people up and say, it's not the Wild Wild West, you're exaggerating again. I'm sure
that is an exaggeration because what we said, you can't have your Colt revolver to protect your property.
That will obviously appease them and make them feel a lot safer in their home. We put this up on our site yesterday, and I put it on my LinkedIn as well. And the food professor highlighted this. The bread cartel that had been like artificially holding up the price of bread, like one of the staples for Canadians for like the past 20 years, and they were forced to pay $500 million. So, as retribution for gouging you for the past 20 years, you can claim, everybody can go on there, you get $25 like nothing. You just got to fill in the form that say that you bought bread, you don't have to have any receipts or anything. And if there's more money left, then they'll distribute the rest of it out to people, and you get up to $100 back. But you might as well go and get, but for 20 years of a bread cartel, you can have $25. But hey, and if you don't need the $25, do this. Go there, fill it out, and then give the money to the food bank. Do you know what I mean? Like if $25 means nothing to you, go there, fill out the form. As soon as you get the $25, give it to the food bank or give it to somebody that needs it. Give it to somebody that needs it. God knows there's enough people that need it right now. But again, just to highlight the Liberals, remember they said that, Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau said, we're going after the grocery stores. We're going to make them freeze prices at the high. I'm just like, you're literally asking to form a cartel. We want all the grocery stores to work together and freeze prices at the high. Literally, you're asking them to form a cartel, which they were being sued for that in the meantime. And I said that at the time, like you're literally asking to do something that they're being sued for right now. And I think they did the same thing. Well, I mean, look at the dairy thing. That basic supply management is basically a cartel.
It's like legalized, yeah.
Legalized cartel, yeah.
But all the media. Dare we use that word to describe the media? Because it almost is true there as well.
Yeah,
there are a lot of these cartels. The Canadian economy is very welcoming of cartels, I think. And I would love it if that was an active issue in Canadian politics, like smash the cartels. I wish we could resurrect Teddy Roosevelt and get him to do some trust busting here.
Yeah, there is some Americans out there thanking Canada, and this is during 9/11. That was yesterday, and then this, because I remember Jean Chrétien was here to speak for us in 2019 at the Level Up Summit. We held the summit. We had both Jean Chrétien and Stephen Harper speak here. And Jean Chrétien was my favorite prime minister, but obviously, according to many people, I'm a far right, whatever. Jean Chrétien was a centrist, where I believe I am, a centrist. And he was actually the prime minister at the time of 9/11. And we took the planes in Gander, Newfoundland, when they refused airspace to the planes that were in the air during 9/11. Gander, Newfoundland took them. People took them into their homes to make sure that they could land somewhere. He was also minutes away from shooting down a plane that was coming in from the West Coast there. That you can go read his book. There was a plane coming from the West Coast that was not responding, and they scrambled our jets, and they were about to take it down, and they were waiting for Jean Chrétien's go-ahead to take the jet out of the air. And at the last second, they communicated, and that plane landed as well. We did lend a hand wherever we could. Jean Chrétien did refuse to go to a war with Iraq, and what was that? The Coalition of the Willing, according to George W. Bush. I think they called it at the time Operation Iraqi Liberation. Oil. And they're just like,
Iraqi
whoa,
freedom. Yeah.
we have to rework that. And then the Canadians refused to go to Iraq in the second war with Iraq, and they actually renamed the French fries in the United States to Freedom Fries. Remember that? Anyway, lots of history there.
But that was, I would say, it's hard to summarize someone's career, like especially Jean Chrétien, he was in politics for like 40 years or 50 years or something, wasn't he? But I would say, for my money, that's his crowning achievement, and that is something to be so proud of and to be congratulated for the rest of time, that he kept Canada out of that disaster. I mean, I feel like maybe he hasn't quite been given the credit he deserves. I mean, I feel like we should talk about that all the time. Like, thank God he did that.
Listen to this, though. They make little of Pierre Poilievre's career, and they call him a career politician. That's all he's ever done. I mean, he had a couple of newspaper jobs and stuff like that, like delivering newspapers. Jean Chrétien was the same, and he's the storied liberal, right? He's the storied liberal. Like, they brought him out for Carney to win the leadership. But what is Jean Chrétien? They brought the old man out. He basically gave the same speech he gave to us at Level Up. It was almost, I'm just like, am I listening to a recording? But he said, let's build that oil pipeline. And that got a lot of people. It got a lot of people, including myself, said like, oh, we're going to build a pipeline. And then no. They brought the old man out, used him, got him to say the oil pipeline, got a lot of people believing it, and then where is it? Use the old man.
Yeah. I feel like he is kind of wheeled out, isn't he, for that gravitas? It's kind of like the old legend.
Most liberals need a mirror. That's what they need. But here you go. Here's your friend here, LeBlanc, promoting the high-speed rail line between Toronto and Quebec. They need to go to Japan and China and see how fast they build these things and how cheap they build them. But so they're going to take $4 billion and they're going to spread it out there in all these consultations there in the vote mecca of Canada. Imagine that.
It's such an amazing line, though, isn't it? Imagine the assessments. Imagine the Indigenous consultations. It's like, yeah, I'm sure the lawyers and all the rest of it are imagining that right now. I'm sure they're planning where they're going to build their mansion.
LeBlanc there is going to put on a Santa Claus hat, nice red robe, going to take that sack of money, and he's going to walk up and down that road there and just shed cash.
Yeah.
The players acquitted in the 2018 sexual assault trial are allowed to return to the NHL. CBC not liking that, so There you go.
What was the point of the song and dance? When they were cleared, straight away the NHL came out and they was like, no, we're not touching them. But why did they? What's the point of this delay? Why didn't they just like stick to their convictions and say, all right, well they weren't guilty of a crime, they're completely innocent. Therefore, it's just a bit sort of spineless that they decided to wait this long.
We're going to close off today's show in this week. This is our last show of the week. We're back every Monday morning. We hope that you appreciate this show. It's a little bit different than traditional news, for sure. We do have a newsroom, though, the reporters that work very hard. I did a good interview yesterday with Gavin Dew, the MLA for Kelowna Mission. I have one coming up with the Mayor of Kelowna next week, where we're going to talk about crime. We're working on tons of stories. We actually work on stories instead of just regurgitate other people's stuff. But we do talk about world events. This is kind of more of our national look at an international look. But one of the things for sure here is, this Charlie Kirk was a Christian, and then this is the reaction from many youth across the United States right now. No riots, just this. And we'll watch this little clip here. Yeah, okay, that's good there. And that is Amazing Grace, a touching song. And then this copyrights, we can't play the song, but here's another one with a person highlighting what's going on here and being sarcastic, asking for the police to show up in this so-called riot. Here, look at this.
Nigga, where is Channel 2 at and Channel 4 at when they really supposed to be reporting something, bro? Listen, look at this, bro. This is in the middle of Highland Park, bro, on Woodward. They doing praise and worship, bro. All these people on the steps, bro. They ain't worried about none of y'all. They know God got them. You not about to come get them off these steps. None of that. This is the most gangster display I seen in the city. I don't care about your Dracos or none of that, bro. They out here in the middle of Woodward, bro. Deep like this, repping for God, cuz. Where is Channel 2 and Channel 4 at, bro? Wow, this is dope. You feel me? Yeah. YC's out here right now. Repping.
That's
not
good.
worried about.
That's good. Obviously,
He's got a good voice, hasn't he?
He's a far-right activist, apparently, right?
All right. Damn, I couldn't see the swastika armband. He must have been hiding it.
I can't believe CBC that anchor there saying those words. I cannot believe that this is what we spend $1.55 billion a year on, so that they can come out there and feed a narrative into some of our young people, and and embolden people to take action. Like University of Toronto professor, what she wrote yesterday was just unbelievable. And these are the people speaking to our youth in this nation, telling you if you have traditional family beliefs, like that was in that CBC's traditional family beliefs, like where you want to have children and that's far-right activism or far-right extreme. Like how? What?
They even refer to it as simplistic in later on in the copy, which is quite funny. Like not quoted either. It's here so this is from the journalist in a deadpan sentence. These simplistic and traditional views Kirk embraced are appealing to young people who are struggling to find their footing amid uncertainty in the world.
And then CBC labels him a far-right activist. And then they wonder why people are on social media like that Rachel Gilmore. You said yesterday that she was ill for some of the stuff that she spews out there.
I mean, she does kind of look ill, doesn't she? But then again, she might not be. She might just be imitating the people out there who do it on a bigger level than her, who really are ill. Quite a lot of them. A lot of the American big boys, they are really quite ill. I think they're quite sick.
Well, I mean, Ben Shapiro, another, people call him a far-right activist. I would venture to say that Ben Shapiro is far from that. Stuck up for Canada many times as well. And he said that he will take Charlie's place and he will start going to universities and he will carry on for Charlie Kirk. And they say, aren't you worried for your life? And then, there's a lot of people in the States that, like right now should feel very threatened. And, including Benny Johnson, I think. What's his name? Benny? Can't remember his last name now. I don't follow a lot of these guys.
Benny Johnson, yeah, he goes around and does stuff on Twitter, probably other platforms.
Candace Malcolm. Oh, not Candace Malcolm. Candace Owens.
Well, there's that other guy who did the "What Is a Woman" thing with a beard. Can't remember his name, but he's another quite prominent figure.
There's a comedian guy. There's a ton of people out there. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan
and Trump's family as well. They're all pretty much in the media, aren't they? Like even Barron Trump, who's never really said anything, but he's visible, isn't he? I suppose he would be a target because he's at university now, isn't he? So it's like obviously these people they're all going to be freaking out, aren't they? I mean, I certainly would be if I was in their shoes.
My only ask is, Elon Musk, you're not spending enough on security. I mean, you're so important to this world and all the technology you develop and all the stuff where you're trying to advance this place to a better place before we self-implode. The world needs Elon Musk. And
he does have some pretty good bodyguards, like, doesn't he? But I mean, I've seen on a few occasions I've wondered, like when he does at Boca Chica, where he stands up on the stage, he's very exposed at times like that, or he talks about rockets and stuff. So now and then it does look like he could be a bit vulnerable, but I'm sure his security team are pretty on it.
It's just amazing how the CBC had put out an article, I believe, too, on Trump when he went somewhere, and they would say that I think it was the Tennis Open, saying that they were told not to have any audio because of the booing. He was just at the Detroit Tigers game there, I think New York Yankees and Tigers, and they were chanting USA, USA, and then the Detroit Tigers on the field, the players were doing the Trump dance. Just like the narrative, and again, it should be troubling to Canadians that they cut the mic when that Northern Perspective journalist asked the question, and then they during the Liberal leadership convention, the questions for Carney there, that they didn't allow. They said they feared for their lives. Well, are these journalists going to attack the CBC? Was that what it is? How did they sell that? How can you even work for CBC? That's my question. Like, you just take their money. Obviously, you take our money.
Well, it's like a government job, isn't it? They get paid more money and they get better benefits and stuff like that. So I think people, but also they obviously. I mean, that's not it, is it? That's not the only answer. It's also because I think believe in the ideology.
Well, the CBC knows what's happening to local independent journalism in Canada.
But then they probably just think it's all garbage anyway, and it's full of Nazis like yourself. So CBC has to take over. They're the responsible ones. They have to take over and make sure everything's kosher.
I don't think anybody's ever called me that before, but hey. My mother's mother was in a Nazi concentration camp, so I don't know. She was rescued by the Russians, but hey.
My grandmother was bombed by the Nazis. Her life was saved by a piano, which we used to have. We used to have this piano that had shrapnel. And that's what, I mean, you'd think that we were so far away from the actual Nazis, but I grew up with that piano it was damaged all across the side and the front because a Nazi bomb fell on it and it ended up saving my grandmother's life.
My grandmother was in a Nazi concentration camp, rescued by the Russians, and then imprisoned by the Russians for the next, whatever, number of years, right, till they took down the Berlin Wall. And my mother was escaped, along with my father, from the Hungarian Revolution, throwing Molotov cocktails at Russian tanks. And then she was labeled a terrorist and couldn't even speak to her mother for 20 years by the Hungarian government, Russian government, whatever you want to call it.
So that's far right and far left. The real far right and the real far left both got persecuted. And that happened to a lot of people in Eastern Europe, didn't it? That was the story. First, the far left came, the far right with the Nazis, and then the far left with the communists. And they had to just, in the same sort of like 10, 20 years, they had to suffer all of that.
Free the media. Stop government funding of all media. Let's get a referendum going in Canada. Somebody take up that mantle, get a referendum going in Canada, and let us decide whether we want to continue funding media in Canada, because it is the power that the Liberals hold over Canada. It is the power. They have the voice to the boomers. Take away their power.
Oh, I mean, the class that they represent, let's say, because the Liberals, broadly speaking, represent the sort of university class, the urban professionals. That's basically who they care about, particularly in Quebec, Toronto, Vancouver. That the CBC is part of that complex, isn't it? And the whole media, mainstream media sort of landscape is part of that concept.
Tracy
I mean,
asked
somebody
a
like
question.
Karl Marx. I often mention Karl Marx. I'm not a Marxist, nor am I particularly a fan of his, but he would, if he was alive today and looking at Canada, he would see that straight away. He would be able to point that out. That's class dynamics. It's very old-fashioned and quite simple, I think.
The Liberal Party is the party of elitism. It's the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. That much is obvious. And even if they had like a half decent, honest Liberal, they would agree with that. And then that temporary foreign workers program, that's what that is. And Tracy asks here, what can normal plebs do? One thing is, don't call yourself a pleb. You have a voice. And that voice is important. And you can actually use it. You can help share our message far and wide, but you can also write letters to your MLAs and MPs, including the Liberal ones, and demand the repeal of Bill C-18, and also to stop all government funding of media. No democratic society can survive without free and independent media and just government-funded media. And this is not just government-funded media. This is funded by one party, because Poilievre says you get rid of it. So this media, the voice, we don't have a Fox News. So if Global wants to go to the so-called right, we should encourage them. Buy their stock, start influencing it, right? It's 9 cents, it's cheap. Buy the stock of Global, vote. Change the whole system out in Global, because Global has a national reach. That may be the solution in Canada. Get Global.
Yeah, well, there's not exactly many options, are there, in terms of the media, as you point out.
There is
There's
some
like the
good
National
journalism.
Post and Post Media, which is supposed to be a balance,
Americans, yeah.
but they don't really perform that role, do they? I don't think they're big enough or ambitious enough to perform that role. But
I've also
Global
said,
could be.
I've also talked with you and said we need to start the ICNN, the Independent Canadian News Network, where we work with Juno News, Blacklocks, Northern Perspective, Western Standard, and outlets like that, and start forming a coalition and demand a bigger voice at press conferences, because they won't let us in. Like it's just ridiculous. So I think we should start that too, and Independent Canadian News Network. And then if Global wants to become the Fox News of Canada, I applaud them and I'd help them. All right, that's it for the week. We're back Monday though, unless they figure out a way to, take away this channel. They took away our audience of 200,000 we earned serving our community with Bill C-18. And we're trying to build it here. So cheers. Thank you for watching No Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.